So this time around I want to talk about the speculation craze in the 80s, the comic book boom and the comic book crash, so to speak. I've seen a lot of videos on this subject, but they seem very clinical, like somebody read Wikipedia and then just made a video about it. And that's understandable. A lot of the videos are made by 20-somethings, or at the very least early 30s, who are either young kids or zygotes when the comic book crash happened. And because of that accident of birth, they don't really have the insight that somebody like myself who was older and lived through it has. And the one thing I could tell you is it was a blast. It was a buyer's market. The relationship between publishers and customers are a hell of a lot different then than they are now, where you have the publishers of Marvel putting the readers down if they don't like every little thing that they produce. And if there were feuds in the comic book industry, it was between creators and not creators and the customer, the reader. Nah, the readers didn't see that stuff. We were just excited, and nothing made us more excited than the false competition between Marvel and DC. Now, from all the stories told, the creators got along, the publishers got along. However, there were readers who would literally just, I hate Marvel, I only read DC, or I never touch a DC comic, I love things like that. And they would be serious about this. I was a mix. I would buy as much as I could from both publishers, sometimes skipping lunch so I could go off to a shop, Duga's bookstore. I remember that was the name of it. We would all take a walk down there and buy as many comic books we could with the lunch money that we had. I even remember buying my first Silver Age comic there. And it was exciting too. I saw the cover and I was like, oh my gosh, that's the first appearance of Thor. Amazing. And at the time it was only $6. So I had to get it. So I put it on layaway, and 10 short days later, 60-cent payments, boom! I owned my own copy of Journey into Mystery number 89. Yeah, I wasn't as educated in comic books as I thought I was back then, nor am I now, so hey, but still, it would be a good buy today. But even back then, I enjoyed the stories, and it got me into buying Silver Age comics. And I actually began to pick up comic books that would really be valuable today. I was able to rack up quite a collection, actually, going from comic shop to comic shop, flea market to flea market, garage sale to garage sale. You could find a lot of really good books for next to nothing. But then something started to happen. All of a sudden, the books started drying up. If you went into a comic shop, what used to be $5 is now $15, which that was a lot of money to a kid back in the day. And adults started rushing into the comic shops to buy up all these books, and you found out they were doing that because they thought they could become rich off of them. And us kids, we believed that also, so we bought all we could. We would buy some to read and some to save and sell later. Thankfully, around the mid-'80s, it was more of a comic book writer's renaissance. We were getting some great stuff. Dave Sims, Neil Gaiman, Frank Miller, Alan Moore, a whole bunch of others that really paid attention to the story, and that's where we got stuff like The Dark Knight and The Watchmen, and Dave Sims' case, Cerebus. And it was so good, and so much excellent product was coming out, and so much money was going into the comic book industry that even the independent companies started to thrive. It was a great time to be a reader. I really cannot emphasize that enough. But then there was a turnaround. All of a sudden, story didn't matter because the comic book companies found that we as readers were becoming more interested in the artists. And the age of the rock star artist was born. And I think that my generation has already apologized for Rob Liefeld. If we haven't, as a representative, I apologize again. However, there were some good-looking books to come out of it. I actually enjoy Eric Larson's run on Spider-Man, and I thought I enjoyed Savage Dragon, but I recently went back to read it, and oh my gosh. But anywho, story, or at least in most cases, story started taking a back seat to the art. It didn't matter what the book read like, so long as it looked good. And that was a sell point to people. Oh my god, it could be a horrible book, but it was drawn by Jim Valentino, and it looked great. Therefore, I had to have it, and it was amazing that this was a mindset. And it wasn't like it slowed down anything, because DC and Marvel started pumping out all sorts of things, including manufactured collector's items. I still own the complete Frank Miller Batman leather-bound set with the silk bookmark in the middle of it. Now, it's a little worse for wear these days, and it definitely doesn't look anything like this anymore. Nope, that and my special edition hardcover Marvels with an Alex Ross wraparound cover both look like they've been read for the last 30 years, or in Marvel's case, I think it's like 23 or 24. Either way, I have to admit that this whole speculation craze, the gimmick covers, I bought into it. I bought it, and what's worse is who was a great Silver Age comic book buyer in the beginning of the 80s, became a mindless zombie of Wizard magazine. And I understand now, of course, that Overstreet is the better choice, or at least we thought it was. But Overstreet came out every 3 months or 4 months. Wizard magazine was every month, so we could keep an eye on how much our books were going up and down in value. Comic books were a stock market, baby. You had to stay on it. Not to mention the 5-minute articles and the glossy pages were just perfect for the MTV generation. Let's not lie about that either. In hindsight, and 20 years later, yeah, you can find a million people who tell you they resisted Wizard magazine's Jedi mind tricks, but I'm telling you right now, there were a lot of kids who followed this thing like it was the gospel. New companies were either made or broken by Wizard magazine, and that's why you know who Image Comic is, and you know who Valiant is, but you've never heard of Techno Comics, even though it had Mr. Hero written by Neil Gaiman, and that was an awesome book. Or Jim Shooter's new company, Defiant, where, okay, actually, this one, I understand why you don't hear about it. It was a cluster from the beginning. And it also brings up something else that happened in the late 80s, early 90s to help the fall of the comic book industry. Trading cards, yeah, those baseball fanatics that ended up coming in, raising the speculation market in comic books, decided, let's buy some trading cards too. And Marvel sold them, DC sold them, everybody made their own trading cards. They were everywhere. I mean, just everywhere. And to bring this right back around to Defiant, put out an entire comic book in trading card form. And it was horrible because if you bought them by the pack, you're paying way, way, way too much for a comic book that you're probably going to finish reading in a year or two. It took me 4 when I was able to find a box of comics, a box of these things that nobody wanted for $2, and I put a set together finally. And the speculation continued. We had to have every shiny cover that came out, and there were a lot of things like the Silver Surfer that came out. Spider-Man had his holograms. It was amazing the weirdness that they could put on a comic book cover, and we were magpies just flocking to the shiny new objects. It was amazing, and it was really cool. You just could not get enough of it. Now, there were some really bad ones, like the Wolverine die-cut cover that continued to bend. You could not keep this in mint condition because all those scratches and everything just wouldn't last. But the one that ended it for me was the Ghost Rider. This one right here. What the do you need a glow-in-the-dark cover on a book for? It's either you see the glow-in-the-dark cover and you can't read the book, or you're reading the book and the glow-in-the-dark cover means nothing. That was the dumbest gimmick, and it ended it. All of a sudden, I became very aware of what was going around me, and I started to recognize my own flaws in my buying habits. And I don't care who you are, but this right here is absolutely the worst prank played on comic book buyers in the world, the variant cover. And this one survives today, and this is the worst of it. I mean, you had 4 covers plus the one that had all 4 covers on it. So why do you need all 4 different issues? It just didn't make sense to me. You could buy this one copy, get the image. Oh, and you want it as a poster to hang on your wall? Don't get all 5 of these books to create that image. Get 2 of the other one and pull one off, because there's 8 million of these things. If anybody's trying to sell you this comic book for more than 50 cents, they're trying to rip you off. damn, if you're they should be issuing this to new comic book readers. It is so worthless. There's 8 million of them, and how many comic book readers are there today? And even these days, variant covers are proving to be just as much of a scam as they were in the 90s. Now, before I talk about what some people say is the true thing that brought down the comic book industry, I would like to point out a couple of other things. One of those things I touched upon earlier, and one of the things I brought up then because I wanted to bring it up now, and that is independent comics. See, at this point, there were so much product coming from DC and Marvel that it just pushed the small press right off the shelf. That's not to say they completely disappeared. Some did, but some still remained. You had to special order them to find them. There was innovation, like I said, Image came around, Dark Horse was there, and there were some companies that had deep pocket backers that were able to survive for at least a few months. Even though I touched upon it, I just feel like I cannot overemphasize the problem with the quality of the comic books. Not all of them, and I had 2 videos that put out 20 reasons that not all comic books were bad in the 90s, but I'm talking about the ones that are now. And it is mainly because the artists became the dominant creative force in comics, not the writers. Instead of the script, it was how it looked. And what it ends up happening is a whole bunch of pretty pictures that had no real story to them, no character to them. And when you have character take a back seat to the way it looks, it just becomes shallow. It's an incredibly shallow experience. You get some very bad comic books. And the artists thought that writing was easy, that they could be good writers, so they were just constantly putting out these bad books. Now, granted, sometimes you got something that looked new. You got a Dale Keown, and it just, they were trying new stuff. That's okay. You want to try to innovate the industry, and that's fine. But the problem is that the art became incredibly dated. Look at the art, and you could tell when it was the 90s. All the lines, all the pouches, the shoulder pads. It was horrible. And Liefeld embodied all of those bad habits. And as I got older and as I started realizing what was going on with the industry, I was one of the ones that complained. They're not being written for me anymore. Why are the comic books selling out? Why are we not getting the stories we used to? It's all about the art, and if it's not about the story, it doesn't work. I was a bit of a whiner at the time, but there were a lot of people who were whining along with me the same way, pretty much the same as it is today. And then along came Doomsday and a slow news day. So, yeah, it was a slow news day, and they got wind of the fact that DC Comics decided to finally kill Superman. And this brought people in droves. I had a flea market comic book shop. I was trying to make a little extra money at the time because I had a baby coming. And it was amazing. I gotta admit, I was not a scrupulous seller because I would have my family go hunt down copies in the on the newsstands or in the comic shops because people were buying comic books that were not even a week old for $5-6. When the black-bagged Superman finally came out, yeah, people were offering $20 for him. They were offering $20. So, yeah, like I said, I had a baby come along. I'm not going to turn down that. Are you kidding me? And like I said, we had family going around picking up, and it was like that everywhere. Everybody was convinced that issue number 75 was going to be the very last issue of Superman they would ever see. For some reason, that's what people were convinced of. And things sold amazingly. What ended up happening was, of course, that we know right now is this story didn't happen. Because once you kill Superman, your only question is, well, what's next? I think DC told a great story with World Without a Superman and the Return of the Superman. Unfortunately, by the time that Superman returned in issue 500, the white bag one, people felt betrayed. And everyone left. I mean, DC and Marvel was still printing up comic books as if they were going to sell millions of them. But everyone lost interest because they thought that they would be getting rich, and instead they just got comic books they could read. And other than us, who wants that? This is what made me want to do this rant here, and I think I'm ranting at this point. is that there's a $90,000 sale for the first appearance of Black Panther, Fantastic Four number 52 here. And it's amazing because Black Panther has never been anything more than a C-list character. Sure, he's helmed his books before, but so has Iron Man. And guess what people called Iron Man when he first had his movie? A C-list character, and rightfully so. And don't get me wrong, Fantastic Four number 52 is a great book to find, and in 9.8 condition, it's like a unicorn. So I understand its scarcity. However, that being said, it really does seem like we're in a new speculative age. Only it's the movies that are fueling the speculation now. Prices increase before the movie, and if the movie is good or bad, decides whether prices are going to continue to rise or fall. And people are clamoring to find the Katana variant covers and selling them or buying them for $500 a pop before the movie. And granted, you're still going to get a pretty penny for it, but I'm seeing a lot of slashed prices and 50% offs. And comparatively, that Fantastic Four 52 sale is actually pretty understandable. Black Panther's been around since the 60s. He's already shown he's got legs and people are interested in him. So when you're buying your House of Mystery Annual number 1, the first appearance of iZombie for $5 from the guy who spent $35 before the TV show came out, just use it as a cautionary tale and remember what I told the kids who would ask me, what should I buy? Knowing that they meant what would make them money, I would always say, buy what you like to read and you're not going to go wrong. Because, just to reiterate, I do believe we are in another speculative age, and just like in the 90s, it's not being caused by us. It's being caused by a bunch of people outside who see that there's a movie coming up and figure, you know what? If I buy that book, I can make a quick dollar. So there you go. Those are my opinions and my thoughts on the subject. What did you think? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you think I'm full of crap? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you like this video, you want to see more, please click like, click share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell to see more. And just like everybody these days, I am on Patreon, and please go right on over. Links should be right here. And put $1 in the till. It would definitely help out to keep this thing going. Every little bit helps. I already have a Patreon-only poll up and going to have some patron-only content going on as well. Check it out for all the rewards and everything we've got listed over there. But mostly, guys, thank you very, very much for watching.